प्रकाशित हृदय में ईश्वर भक्त के समाए, साचा रूप साचा रंग मन में दिखाए, प्रकाशित हृदय में ईश्वर। दिव्य रूप तेरी ज्योति, हर दिशा में तेरी कीर्ति, दिव्य रूप तेरी ज्योति, हर दिशा में तेरी।
सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति। Any questions? We were discussing the extrinsic conduct of a person of realization and answering the question, why are they different? Of course, before you ask the question, why are they different, you have to ask the preliminary question, which is, ऐसे नहीं करो, please नहीं करो. I'm just surprised that I haven't still had a heart attack. 40 years I'm speaking, nobody knows a word of what I'm saying. A very, very sorry state of affairs. Before you can ask the question, why are they different? You have to ask the question, it's only a summary of last time. What? Which is a question you will ask? Common sense, right? You're asking the question, why is a man of realization or a person of realization different from another person of realization? If both of them have experienced the same thing, why are they not the same? That's your question. But before you can ask that question, you will have to ask another question, which is,
what makes them different?
That's the question. But what's the question before? Why are they different? What makes them different? Same question. Before you can ask, why are two people of realization so different from each other, you will have to ask the question. We did it last time. Very sorry.
How do they exist?
Very
How
good.
do they continue to exist after realization?
Why are they alive to begin with? right? Only if they're alive, you will see they're different. But why are they alive? Why do you have to ask this question? Anybody
Because
other
they're
than
supposed
Deep?
to be free
Sorry,
of
no, not
vasanas.
you. No, wait. No, Deep Raj. Anyone other than Deep Raj can answer that. Why do we have a question on whether a person of realization is alive or not? Why do we have this question?
Because we're
Because
supposed to
desire,
have no desires.
that we
Self-realization heralds
like no desires, no
exhaustion of
life.
vasanas.
Because all life is because of
Desires.
Prarabdha.
if you don't have desires, how can you be alive? Right? Why did you take birth? Because you have desires. Having taken birth, what do? You move around. Why do you move around? Because you have desires. Every movement is because of desires. Birth is a movement. Birth is because of desires. This is clear, right? Everybody knows this. Now, here is a person who has exhausted his desire. So, there is no fuel left. Why is he continuing to function? Right? Once the fuel is over, the car stops. Correct? So, you have to ask the question, why is he alive? And if he is alive, why is he different from all the others? I mean, if you're paying attention to the subject, you will ask these questions. Otherwise, you'll say, okay, fine, whatever you say. Please realize that this is a subject which is based on question and answer. It's just based on question and answer. In traditional times, the guru never taught anything. They would go and sit down and live their life. Okay, whatever they were doing, they would do. And they wouldn't teach anybody anything. In retrospect, that seems like a better idea. But so then some people come to them and say, teach me. Then also they won't teach. Then they'll say, okay, now you do work here for 5 years. Then we'll talk. Then that fellow had to work for 5 years. So obviously, most people would leave. They'd say, मुझे कुछ मिल तो नहीं रहा है, काम मुझसे किया जा रहा है. They would leave, right? Oh my God, somebody's taking me for granted. All this nonsense will go on in their head because selfishness will prop up. Oh my God, I'm made to do so much. So after 5 years, whoever survived, he was then allowed to ask a question. Okay, what did you want to ask me? Now he's worked for 5 years, right? He's getting one opportunity to ask. What an idiot he would be if he says, how do I get along with my mother-in-law? So you want to ask a question like that, right? What is the question he'll say? Teach me Brahma. Okay, also in the Upanishad, one student, very said, brilliant question. He said, his question was, so we've assumed all this has happened. Now he's going to come to the teacher's allowed him to ask a question. So then he said, tell me that, which if I were to know, I would know everything. What a brilliant question, right? Tell me that, which if I were to know, I would know. Now, why does he even ask a question like that? Because all the work he's done before. All the dedication, all that time, he's just waiting to ask his question. And while he's waiting to ask the question, the personality is getting purified. However, those days are long gone. So we have to pose the question also and answer the question also. So why does a man of realization survive after realization? And the answer to that is because of prarabdha vasana.
Prarabdha vasana.
That's good. Because of prarabdha vasana. Now, since he's existing because of prarabdha vasanas, each one's prarabdha vasanas are different. And therefore, each one will be different. When Aparna realizes she will be doing biotechnology, when Deep Raj realizes he will be doing mathematics, when Mahesh realizes he will be building Vedanta University. Each one will be doing his own thing, right? So, as far as a person has been in a particular way, he will continue to be that way. He cannot change. Let us say that a car, a Mercedes, is going at 60 miles an hour down the road, and the engine is turned off. What will happen to that car? Will it become a Maruti? No. It will continue to be a Mercedes, and it will continue to move until it will eventually come to a halt, right? Suppose it was a Maruti 800 that is going at 60 miles an hour and the engine is switched off. Now, what will happen to that Maruti 800? It will continue to be a Maruti 800 and it will continue to do whatever it was doing, right? So, whatever it was before realization, it was this, whatever the personality was before realization, it will continue to behave in that manner until eventually it will come to a, after the fuel is completely finished, it will eventually come to a halt. Okay, so that's how it works. Simple example is you switch off a fan, it will continue to be a fan, and it will continue that rotating movement. Right? Suppose it was I don't know, some other gadget that went like this, like this, like this. Then when you switch it off, it will continue to go like this, like this, like this, not suddenly start going like this. Right? So that's how a person of realization continues after realization and continues in that manner after realization. Okay, so he gave us an example from physics, which was on the pulley, balancing the two sides of the pulley. So when you, depending on at what point you balance it, that much will the movement be. And we can take it as if the car was going as 30 miles an hour, then it will be that type of movement. If it was going at 80 miles an hour, then it will be that type of movement. It will be what it was until friction or whatever else makes it stop eventually. Suppose there was very little movement, no movement at all. The car was as it is going at 2 miles an hour. Now you switch the engine off. So ho gaya na? So it's not a rule that a person has to survive after realization. But if anybody survives after realization, meaning it's possible the person survives and it's possible the person doesn't survive. But if at all there is any survival, then this is the explanation for it. Is that clear?
Jankaji, I had a question related to the prabdha vasanas that we acquire. So, if, what is the role of like if there's one, there are two people, two individuals acquired their prabdha and they are continuing to live as long as that gets exhausted. But what about the external factors? Like if one person is a kind of a reckless and careless person, the other is more disciplined and he has a regulated lifestyle. So it's just obvious that that person is going to live more than the other person. So how does it all feature in the Prabdha? Because I thought that, I mean, how does that work with this? Yeah, I'm not finding the relation.
You're talking about normal people, not realized.
Okay, normal people. Because if I would be normal, that's why I'm born. I mean, I'm still not self-realized. That's why I have some desires. That's why I'm born. And after that I can't wrap my mind around that how external factors don't play a role when you die. Like
when you're saying external, you mean external to prarabdha?
External to prarabdha.
Okay. So firstly, there's a discussion about the non-realized. Because if you say he's reckless, then it's unlikely we are talking about a realized person. So how does that fit in? That I don't think you can use the word external. How can his other behavior not have any effect on his prarabdha vasana? right? His other behavior does not have any effect. When the prarabdha vasanas get over, he is to die. Now you say, no, I'm sure that if I live a healthy life, I will live longer. I don't know. If you live a healthy life, are you going to live longer or are you going to live better? There are people who live very healthy lives and die at 40, at 25, right? Only recently I heard of a person, he's only 29 years old. He's got a 7-month child. He just got a heart attack and died, like perfectly healthy otherwise. Right? So, if you claim all his other behavior is influencing it, then how is this happening? I mean, so many, we've read it, right? So many people. One of my husband's friend's wives, 52 years old. She went to the gym, she was a gymmer, she went to the gym, she came back, went in the kitchen to make herself a cup of tea and died there. How do you explain this? Didn't all her good behavior and everything matter? How, in fact, if you say it didn't matter, then you're going violating the law of karma. Right? So, of course, it mattered. How did it matter? It mattered about the quality of life. Okay? Now, there's another aspect in this. This much is fine.
Yes, sure.
There's another aspect of this. Your prarabdha vasanas and your sanchita vasanas are not usually opposed to each other. They could be, but they're not usually. So it is unlikely that you have prarabdha vasanas that are going to end your existence very quickly, and your sanchita vasanas are all the right ways of living. It could be, but it is unusual. That is why you don't find that happening. You find it more as an exception that somebody taking care of their health has. That's the only way we can resolve these two ideas.
Thank you, guys.
Janki ji, I have a question. In the last lecture, I think Deepraj spoke about, in an earthquake, X number of people will die. And then you explained that by saying that there'll be X number of babies born also, to compensate for that, the number of deaths.
No, the explanation, firstly, he didn't say that. I said that for him, poor fellow. The point was that we are very surprised with a earthquake, a tsunami, an air crash. When these things happen, you say, how is it possible all these people, their prarabdha vasanas ended at the same time? So it seems very odd, right? How, doesn't make sense. Everybody has got exactly the same point. To which the answer is that at any given moment, so many people are dying simultaneously. It only is drawn to our attention when it seems to happen simultaneously, like in these events. But if you look at it, generally speaking, okay, so let's say at 10:30 a.m. today, 16th November, right? Right, Mahesh, today, 16th November?
Yes.
16th November. Yeah. He knows why I'm saying 16th November. 16th November, 10:30 a.m. So many people were born. And 16th November, 10:30 a.m., so many people would have passed away. But they're not happening. You open the orbit thing, na? Even in your own city, you will see so many people have died on the same day. So the thing is, it's happening. It is only drawn to attention when it's an air crash or it's a tsunami or, it's not unusual. That's the point.
And
Okay, nothing to do with the birth of babies. It's to do with the simultaneous exhaustion or prarabdha vasanas or death.
Another question kind of occurred to me that how does the population increase, in spite of the deaths happening? How do you account for that? Because people are not getting realized, and yet the population is going up. How do we account for that?
How we account for that is, I'm so glad this is a subject that has been thought of for the last 10,000 years. Otherwise, imagine if we had to answer all these questions. We would really have to say, oh my God, now how do you explain this? Right? If it is true that rebirth is taking place, how can there be so much expansion of population? But does anyone recognize the fallacy in the question? There is okay, let's not say fallacy, let's say assumption in the question. There is a very strong assumption in this question because of which this question comes. Can anyone identify what that assumption is?
Only humans are born as humans.
Very good. Only humans are born as humans. Prashant says microorganisms will also be in the total count. So yeah, correct, Prashant. The assumption is only humans are born as humans. Because just think about it. How many species are extinct? How many creatures are gone? They're no more. What happened to all the dinosaurs? They're right here. When we meet them, then we say, how can he behave like that? But he was a dinosaur. How else will he be? Right? So assumption is only humans become humans. Second assumption you can make is only those on Earth come back to Earth. We don't even know whether there are other life forms. Right? So how do you explain them? We don't need to explain them. As soon as we understand that, we don't need this assumption. The assumption that only humans are born, only earthlings are born on Earth. We don't need any of these assumptions. There's no basis for having any of these assumptions. Okay?
Thank you.
Right. Now, coming back to the person of realization. A person of realization continues on his prarabdha vasana. Okay, that's why he continues. So remember the difference between sanchita and prarabdha vasanas? Sanchita vasanas, can you define sanchita vasanas for me?
These are total vasanas.
Define them. That's a translation. What is the definition? As a philosophy student, you should not be associating with any concept for which you do not have clear definitions. Or even if it's not a definition, a clear understanding of that term. Prashant, correct, it's the aggregate, but that's only a translation. Sanchita, the word sanchita means total. It means aggregate. That's what the word means. But when we say it is a sanchita vasana, it not only is a total, it is also, we have given it some characteristics. What are the characteristics of sanchita vasanas?
Vasanas that can be exhausted through knowledge.
Very good. Excellent. Vasanas that can be exhausted through knowledge. You can also say can be exhausted through knowledge and experience. Okay? So the first quality is it can be exhausted through knowledge and experience, or you can say that as the second point, it can be also exhausted through experience. Thirdly, it is what goes with you from birth to birth. It has three predominant characteristics. Right? If you don't finish it, it is carryover. Okay. Now, can we define what are prarabdha vasanas?
Vasanas that can be exhausted only through experience.
Very good. Vasanas that cannot be exhausted through knowledge, they can be exhausted only through experience. They cannot be increased or decreased, unlike sanchita vasanas. Oh, well, they can be decreased. I mean, they will end them eventually. Sanchita can be increased or decreased. Prarabdha vasanas cannot be increased. You have to exhaust them. You have no option. So that's the next characteristic of prarabdha vasanas. It's choiceless. When actually, this is just explanatory. When you say it cannot be exhausted through knowledge, it means it is choiceless. When you say it can be exhausted through knowledge, it means there is a choice. So all this is just explanatory. The reason to say it is because sometimes it doesn't occur to us that this is what it means. But you can put it separately also, but please understand it's both the same point. You can put it separately just for understanding and remembrance. The prarabdha vasanas, the only important thing is cannot be exhausted through knowledge, has to be exhausted through experience. Right? The end of prarabdha vasanas is
Death.
death. The end of sanchita vasanas is
Self-realization.
self-realization. So prarabdha vasanas can only be exhausted through knowledge. They are choiceless. They are, when exhausted, a person dies. There is no carryover of prarabdha vasanas. As far as prarabdha vasanas are concerned, human beings and animals are in exactly the same boat. That means animals have access to their prarabdha vasanas, and we also have access to our prarabdha vasanas. Animals and every form of life other than humans that we know has no access to their sanchita vasanas. An animal has no access to his sanchita vasana, a human being has. It's like the connect. It's not that they don't have, the connection is not there. All right, so this is a difference between sanchita and prarabdha. As far as we are concerned, the point which is important to us right now is as long as the prarabdha vasanas are not exhausted, you will stay alive, regardless of whether you are a self-realized soul or not. All these points are clear? Okay. Deepraj?
I'm just asking this so that I can put Prarabdha in the whole picture. So we know that self-effort is subtler than vasanas.
Correct.
So that means self-effort has dominion over all vasanas.
Has dominion only over sanchita.
So then how can we claim that? So we claim self-effort is subtler than Sanchita Vasana.
It is also subtler than prarabdha vasanas in technical terms, but it doesn't have dominion over it because think about it. If you have pulled the trigger and the bullet has left, then the bullet is left. Now nobody has control over it. So prarabdha vasanas is a vasana that is fructified. So nothing and nobody has any control over it. You can't
Got it.
wish to have different prarabdha vasanas. I mean, you can wish, but it'll come through in the next time. Your self-effort can make it sanchita, which will then make it prarabdha for next time. All that is possible. But it's a done deed, as it were. Can't be changed.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Sankiji, this Prarabdha Vasana is quite confusing in the sense that some examples of Prarabdha Vasanas is that I am born as a man, I am born Indian. These are some examples of Prarabdha Vasanas. But
It is not necessarily so. I mean, I'm giving those examples because they're easy to understand. But it is quite possible that somebody like Lata Mangeshkar has Prarabdha Vasanas for singing. Or Sachin Tendulkar has Prarabdha Vasanas for playing cricket. It is not the type of Vasana, it is how it is in you.
so the kind of desires that you have, the quality of your desires, they come from Prarabdha Vasanas.
Not quality. The part which is fixed. Could be any type. Like, let's take somebody like Durvasa, for instance. He was a great eater. When he was very angry, if this is his Prarabdha Vasana, he will continue to be that kind of person. Eat a lot and be ready to tick you off. I mean, that's not an excuse for everybody in this class saying, oh, all these are my Prarabdha Vasanas. Okay, don't misunderstand this.
Janki ji,
One
can we say that?
One second. Omkar, you're done?
Yeah, it done, but not quite clear. I think we need to think a little
What
more.
part
But
is not clear?
so the question is still that let's say the exhaustion of Sanchita Vasanas is self-realization, and the exhaustion of Prarabdha Vasana is death. A self-realized person who is exhausted is Sanchita Vasanas and continues to live because of the Prarabdha Vasanas. Could he have those Prarabdha Vasanas which are normally not acceptable of a person of self-realization?
Yes.
For example, let's say he has a Prarabdha Vasana for drinking and gambling. Can a self-realized person still continue to have that?
Yes. But when it manifests, it will be for the welfare of all. I mean, it's difficult what you're saying. They're highly theoretical things because in his own whole sadhana, he could not get rid of gambling. Okay. I mean, I'm taking your example. So yes, if it's possible, if actually that has happened, yes, why not? It could be anything, but then his vasana, when it manifests, whenever prarabdha vasanas manifest in a self-realized person, it will always be in the welfare of all. Because he's not capable only of any other thing, right? He's reached a point where he's incapable of doing a selfish action. Otherwise, he wouldn't have reached there. He loses that capacity. So yeah, Deep Raja said butcher example. Yeah, why not? So the popular concept of what a self-realized person should be is a layman's concept, right? It's
Right.
not a well-conceived, well-thought thing like a philosophy. So we can't go by what the layman says, not because the layman can't think this, but because he hasn't. He hasn't put in the effort and time to figure all this stuff out. Man mein aaya bol diya. This is the whole problem with our discourse in society today. Everybody simply says what comes to their mind. Nobody puts in any thought, whether it is saying things, whether it is doing things, whether it is, anything is not thought. There's jo man mein hai. Karo. There is no planning, no efficiency. I mean, you see on television, they're all screaming at each other. In fact, the system is also such that you have to scream. Even simple things like when someone is talking, you don't talk. Simple things. If someone says something, you're not keeping quiet, waiting for them to stop. You are going with them. Then you're going to think about it. And then you're going to respond. So people say, oh, is sabke liye kiske paas time hai? Nahi time hai. So be that person. Main kya karu? It's so tough. Trying to keep people on a point is so tough. Chill. Take a deep breath. I mean, everyone associated with us obviously has good vasanas, right? Otherwise, why would they be associated with us? But one day I want this, one day I want that. ये करेंगे, वो करेंगे, वो करेंगे. अरे जो अपना काम तो करो पहले. नहीं, ये भी देखना है, वो भी देखना है. Can't be done like that. So whether it is speech, whether it is action, there is no thought. Therefore, say, oh my God, this happened. Oh my God, that happened. What were you expecting will happen? I didn't expect anything to happen. Yeah, no, you're dealing with children to क्या बोले, I don't know. कुछ बोल सकते हैं क्या? So, as opposed, so you can't take, what can't you take?
The layman's conception of a self-realized person.
Why didn't you let Omkar speak, Deepraj? I think Deepraj is the only person who actually pays attention, right, in class. Omkar, you're with me or not?
Yes, yes.
So you can't take what laymen say, not because we are highly specialized and we are expert and we know everything and nobody else knows anything. It's just that we've spent some time thinking about this and the others haven't. If they spend time thinking about it, they will also come to the same conclusions. So don't bother what people say. Bother about, is this a sensible thing to think? Okay.
Right. Yes, thank you.
Mamita. So Durvasa does not incur consequences of his anger. His vasanas do not increase. Yes. If you accept him to be a self-realized soul, if your data is that he's a self-realized soul, his vasanas will not increase. Number one. Number two, if his anger is indeed prarabdha vasanas, again it will not increase. And that is regardless of whether he is a self-realized soul or not.
But his anger will affect the person it is directed at.
Yes, it will benefit the other person. Yes.
It will benefit.
Yes. I mean, I'm assuming now that he is a wise person on that
Right.
assumption. Then his
Right.
anger will benefit. Yeah.
But how can we say that? Because the other person, it is up to the other person to take the anger in the constructive way rather than, and that depends on that receiver's vasanas or abilities.
Correct. Good point. But from his perspective, it is beneficial. The other person may or may not take the benefit at that point, but at some point, it's like you've done the right action. So its result will come sometime or the other. Like a child doesn't understand when the mother fires the child. But because of the firing, the child was forced to do something, whatever. Only an adult, that child may understand, oh, thank God, my mother made me do this. At that point, he's not for it. He's totally against it.
Okay. Similarly, like there have been self-realized people, I mean, assuming they're self-realized, who have, say, spoken ill of other religions. That is also okay.
Yes, because I don't know whether they spoke ill of other religions or whether did they write it down? How do you know he said this? And then second, that's point one. And point two is usually they don't talk ill of religions. They talk ill of those religious practitioners. Like every religion is good and true and everybody knows that. But your concept of your religion may not be true. Right? So let's say there's a self-realized person. I'm just making up stories, okay? Let's say there's a self-realized person who says, oh, you shouldn't be a terrorist, or you shouldn't be go on crusades, or whatever he says, or you should not take, injustice lying down. So it is translated sometimes in other people's minds as, oh, he's against that religion. May not be. Like, for instance, we say, don't meditate prematurely. So there are many groups that tell you to meditate. When you say don't, so it's clear to your audience that you're saying don't do this, you're referring to whom at that point. So they take away don't meditate, they'll say, oh, he said that they are wrong.
Okay. But I heard like someone say that it is ridiculous to think to compare the senses to horses and expect that you can teach self-realization, targeting the Bhagavad Gita. And this person is celebrated as a very loving, compassionate, otherwise a self-realized person. So
we don't know whether he's celebrated rightly or wrongly, but the sentence in itself is not wrong. You can never teach self-realization, can you? Either the person gets it himself or doesn't. You can only teach the path. I mean, you can give tuition, you cannot give intuition. So the statement in itself is not wrong.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, who was Sadir Menon? Did you have something?
Yes, Janki ji. Can we say that vasanas constituting one's swadharma will fall under prarabdha vasanas?
No, not necessarily.
Okay.
Swadharma will be the total, the entire personality. It will include prarabdha and sanchita. Because you can't keep your prarabdha out of swadharma, right? So, but it's the whole thing.
Thank you.
Janki, when you say new vasanas are formed, they come under what? Sanchita vasanas. They are added to Sanchita vasanas.
Yes.
For this life, yes.
For this life.
Yeah, I mean, yes, it goes into your total. You create a vasana, it goes into your total. If it becomes a fructified vasana, it will become prarabdha in the next one. But as far as you're concerned, yes, it gets added to the sanchita. It gets added to the total.
Thank you.
All right, so clear about person of realization. If you're not clear, don't worry. It is not meant to be clear. How can we understand a person of realization? It's like a 2-year-old trying to understand the motivation of his mother. Not good. But just a little bit for us to not get too agitated. Some little things are given to us. Okay, so now let's go further. Who will read?
I can read. Realization equalizes the disparity of demand and supply. The individual makes his demands. The world makes the supplies to meet the demands. The imbalance created by the inequality between his demand and supply lasts until self-realization. The unfulfilled desires cause the motion of life. When the Sanchita, the aggregate of all unmanifest desires, is exhausted, there is no more motion generated, no further acceleration, but the original acquired velocity remains. That is the state of the self-realized. He lives on because of his original acquired prarabdha vasanas, desires. Like a car moving at 100 kilometers an hour runs out of fuel, it has no more acceleration as the fuel is exhausted, but its motion continues because of the already acquired velocity. So too do the self-realized function differently because of the different prarabdha vasanas they are born with. If the original prarabdha was little, feeble, then his manifestation upon realization would be the same. Perhaps like Ramana Maharshi. If the prarabdha was of music, then he would perhaps turn out to be Saint Tyagaraja. And if made up of erudition and scholarship, he would emerge as Swami Ramatirtha. So the first point talks about how till realization there is a disparity between the demand and supply, and that causes the acceleration. At self-realization, this equalizes, so there is no more acceleration, but the original velocity stays the same. And since the original velocity can be different, we see different manifestation depending on the velocity before equalization.
And this original velocity is known as
Prarabdha.
Prarabdha.
prarabdha vasanas. Very good. Excellent. Except don't say prarabdha because prarabdha means something different. Prarabdha vasanas means something different. Prarabdha means destiny. Prarabdha vasanas, we've already defined what it means. So be careful in the usage of this. When you come to philosophy, you have to be extremely careful what you say. And that is the training that gives us the clarity of thought, because now you're not randomly saying anything, you're not using unnecessary short forms, you're saying what you mean and meaning what you say. Okay, so I hope this is clear. The easy example is the car is going, the fuel is over, or the engine is switched off, and the car continues in motion. What type of motion? Based on what was before the fuel got over. Right? So Maruti 800 continues Maruti 800. If it was going at 60 miles an hour, it will continue that. If it was going at 3 miles an hour, it will continue that. If it was a Merc, it will continue to be a Merc. If it was going at 60 miles an hour, it will continue with that. If it was going at 3 miles an hour, it will continue. Right? So whatever was the original acquired velocity, that will continue. Okay, 1 minute pause to just digest this. So, yeah, Deepraj.
From the perspective of the self-realized, he is not doing any action. He's just witnessing the vasanas manifesting.
From the perspective of the self-realized, there's nothing there. All this explanation is from our perspective.
Got it.
Right. So, what have we got? Now we have studied two aspects, right, of the self-realized person. We've understood What is his intrinsic being? How he has power and love and dispassion. We've understood all of that. Then we understood why they are different, right? What is the reason why each one of them behave very differently? So we understood his internal state, we've understood his external state. Means what is going on inside of him, we've understood what his behavior is. Okay, both of these are clear. Now we're going to study two other aspects of the self-realized soul, which is what is the impact of the world on him and what is the impact he has on the world. So now we are about to enter impact on him. We've studied him as he is. As he is means from our perspective, of course, internally and in behavior. Now we're going to see what effect is the world having on such a person.
Janki, you have a question.
Which you've written here, right? This one. What about someone like Giordano Bruno, who refused to retract his realization that the earth goes round the sun and was burnt as a heretic, though he was a devout Christian? This is another example of how we need to understand the behavior of the self-realized.
How we need not understand.
We need not understand.
Because it seems like he could have not gone against the church. He was a priest himself. But he did. He thought it was important for him to assert that truth. So which seems, I don't know,
unnecessary in retrospect. No, because it's very, very difficult to understand why a person does what he does because we don't get the context. Had people like Bruno not done what they had done, science would still be in the dark ages. So it's like, people so randomly say, na, ki, okay, all these people gave up their lives for independence, so kya bada hua? They talk like that. They don't get it. That it is because of that we are at least here. They don't understand what the Bengal famine was, for instance. When we are a ruled nation, what they say. I mean, it is Churchill stockpiled food in England for the war efforts, while people here just died as fleas. More people died in the Bengal famine than, I don't know, both wars put together. It was a, what do you call this? Just get people to starve because you've taken all their food away. Now, in retrospect, we can make all these statements. Now that we have an internet and we have everything, it's a big deal, yeah, the sun goes around the earth or not. But at that time, these were the founding steps. So it's difficult for us to understand why would someone, obviously, if he's intelligent enough to figure out that the earth goes around the sun, he's intelligent enough to figure out that if I say this, what is going to happen to me? And yet he chooses to do that. So, and that context, that time, that reason, it's quite difficult for us to understand. For those of us who feel, okay, it's so big deal, I mean, obviously, now for us, it's like a everyday thing. What is there to give up your life on this? It's difficult to trace back and understand it. So we don't know, whether he was self-realized or not. And we don't know under what conditions he took this ultimate sacrifice. Like, why did Jesus have to get crucified? Was he not smart enough to escape? He was more than capable of handling all those guys. A man who can figure out the nature of reality cannot deal with these guys and twist them round his little finger, should he so desire. Which he did, right? That guy, what is his name? Pontius Pilate, he asked him. They were all, the mob came, right, to Pontius Pilate and said that you have to, put this guy in prison because he's going against the Roman emperor. To which Pontius Pilate said, "Are you refusing to pay taxes to Caesar?" And you know his fabulous answer: "Render unto Caesar what is Caesar, and render unto God what is God." So he was able, he's smart enough, right? To give an answer that's true, give an answer that Pontius Pilate can't do anything about. He has to let him go after this answer. He's smart enough, right? And yet, a person like that allows himself to be crucified. So it's difficult for us to understand what exactly was happening then. So we don't know in the case of Bruno whether he was realized, but obviously he has to be noble enough to allow this to happen.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Prashant Nair, from the point of unrealized, where should the consequence of actions of self-realized persons done during Prarabdha Vasana stage be accounted? What do you mean, where should they be accounted? Under Prarabdha Vasana. Every action requires a Vasana. So we have given Prarabdha Vasanas and that's how we account for it. What further accounting is required?
The action done during Prarabdha Vasana stage will have some consequences.
Yes, correct.
So that has to go somewhere. Somebody should have that consequences, or he should have it. But his identity is not there, so this consequence cannot go to that point. But it has to go somewhere.
Okay.
Just
So the three types of consequences. There is a first at the level of the physical body, there are consequences. So let's say Christ allows himself to be crucified, then he is crucified, right? So there's a physical consequence that this horrible thing he will have to go through. There's a mental consequence. A mental consequence means that when you do something from a mind level, you will get the consequence at the mind level. So if anyone has done a selfish act, he will become agitated. And if somebody has done an unselfish, noble act, then he will become peaceful and calm. So the self-realized person is feel peaceful and calm because all he did was self-receptivity. Then there is effect at the Vasana level. So what is the consequence to the self-realized at Vasana level is exhaustion of Prarabdha. It's like there was a certain fuel, that fuel has now come to an end. You are muted.
Madam, the fuel got exhausted in the car. It was traveling down the way. It hit a person. The car hit a person. Person got injured. So the consequence, who will bear that consequence?
The person who's injured. And the car will bear the consequence in the sense that that accident has happened. So the car is also hurt. Hurt in the sense, whatever its bumper is damaged or I don't know, whatever is happening. So
प्रेमलता
consequence.
ये कर दे, अच्छा नाश्ता कर लो, फिर इसको चढ़ा देते हैं. इस कमरे की डस्टिंग हो गई है, मैं जब तक ड्राइंग रूम की करती हूँ. अरे यार ये
iPhone, it's very nice that you're attending to your household duties, but try and do it after class. I don't know what to say. People should at least put their names, right? So we know who are these people. I said put on video, wo nahi ho raha hai, so naam to rakho. But I'm not giving sufficient incentive. So if you put your name, you'll get fired. So unlikely anyone will put their name. Okay. So is it clear? Physical consequence. The car is run out of fuel, right? So physically it hits a tree. It will also get this thing. The tree will get, it will get physical consequence. Emotional consequence, there is no intent of damage, so there is no guilt. And
the Vasana.
And fuel is anyway over, so no fuel is going to get generated out of this. The act of movement was exhausting whatever propulsion there was. Nothing is for him. There is no consequence at the vasana level. There is consequence at the physical level. It's not for him also, for the body. Whatever the consequence is, it is.
But at the same,
Yeah.
the same action, if there was fuel, it would have been impacted in the Vasana level, right?
If there was a vasana, the effect is from where is that action coming? If the action is merely physical, then you get a physical consequence. If it's physical, emotional, you get a physical, emotional consequence. If it's a vasana, physical, emotional, then you get all three levels. So it depends on what the individual did, right? Based on the cause is the effect.
Thank you.
Prakash, can we equate prarabdha vasanas? Can be equated with prasada karma? No, prasada karma, I mean, I don't know how you're defining these terms. Normally, prasad karma means the attitude of the sadhak. That means you do everything, you do your work and you accept the result as a prasad of the Lord. I don't know if that's what you're referring to. But if you're defining your prasada karma exactly how we described prarabdha, then yes, you can equate it. All depends on definitions, right? How are you defining all these terms? Okay, so that's it for today. We'll continue next time.
We have an announcement.
Oh, yes, go ahead, Jay.
Hariom Janki ji.
Hariom. Jayashree has
We
an
have an-
announcement for us.
Hari Om, everyone. So my first announcement is to participate in marathon. Dream Run is a fundraise category, so we are encouraging everybody to participate in the same. And all the details are shared in each group. So please get in touch with me. We are approaching the closing date soon. That is the 22nd of November. Please get in touch with us and let's have some fun together. It's in Mumbai on the 19th of January. And I have announcement 2 as well. That is for Yagna, which is happening in Mumbai, Jamna, by 27th of November. Chapter 10 by Sushila ji. We need a lot of volunteers and a lot of audience seekers to attend. So please get in touch with me again, or Bharat, or Vidushi, or Mahesh. And that is all. Thank you. Hari Om. Thank you for listening.